Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Justin Van Heerden, who will be defending his eternal featherweight belt, Eternal 76, June 10th, Perth, HBF Stadium. Mate, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be on the show. We've been going back and forth a bit, since you started sort of getting it going and talking about me coming on, and I'm stoked. I love a chat. So
I know, I've been looking forward to it, to finally get you on, because you do always have an opinion about everything and anyone. And it's quite ironic because you know who the other guy that keeps going back and forth with me? Rod Costa, who you're defending your belt against. That fight was booked earlier, fell through. You actually both eventually got injured.
yeah,
How do you feel about it happening again?
obviously, like for me, when I sort of look at the landscape at featherweight, and I sort of, I sort of look at where I'm at since we had the first time we fought. He and I have gone on sort of different sort of trajectories there. Obviously he beat me, strung together a couple wins, and then obviously fought for the featherweight title. Had some adversity there, bounced back, and then sort of, dropped down to a bantamweight, had success there, became the champion, and obviously, put him in a position where we could like do this rematch. And then obviously for myself, I sort of took that loss to him, and then, rebounded, continued working, and then sort of improved fight to fight. Then obviously had a massive year last year. But and obviously, took it out with the belt at the end of the year. So looking at the landscape, like it makes sense. Like I just avenged one of my, because at featherweight I've got 3 losses. One of the, one was Diego, one was Rod, and then one was a guy that, doesn't even fight anymore. So my thought process was, all right, Costa and I at featherweight in February on that massive card before the UFC, makes sense. It's going to be a packed show. It's going to be huge. It's the night before the UFC. It's a big weekend. It's going to be, a lot of buzz and a lot of eyeballs. And then for myself, it was like, all right, it's an opportunity for me to get that one back. And then, that's that'll do wonders. Like if I go out there, perform against Rod, get a finish, put him away, get the W, I've avenged, the losses I got at featherweight. Continue the win streak, continue the momentum. So it's, it was a sort of a no-brainer from that sense as well. And also it was more so when you look at the landscape of featherweight. So I've beaten pretty much the people that I need to beat in the weight class. I beat Alavi, I beat Philpott, I beat Diego. I've sort of, and I've, accepted the fights against the other people. Obviously, I had some things fall through and things don't work out. Obviously, Rod and I, like you said, were meant to fight earlier. We both sort of got injured, fell through. But outside of Rod, the only other person in the weight class that's, I guess, eligible for the title fight, or that would have been another name that, if they went, okay, this is your opponent, would be Abdallah, right? That's kind of the, and even then it's kind of like, from what I've gathered, Rod's the only one that was like proactive in being like, okay, let's get this fight going, because he asked for it after he won the bantamweight title. He said he wants the winner of Diego and I.
Yeah.
You got someone like Abdallah, he had that energy after he fought on the same night as me and was like, I want the winner of the next fight, blah, 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 blah. And then, beat Philpott, and, Blake Austin had to ask him the question, is a title fight something you want? And he was like, oh, I don't know, man. You'll see who they give me. Didn't have that same energy then. And, I don't blame the guys. So, but that's what this game's like that, man. You got to have the energy. You got to have the proactiveness to sort of ask for what you want, separate yourself from everyone else and get that. Rod's done that, right? Went and fought, strung together a couple wins, won a title, and then was like straight away was like, okay, this is what I want. So, and then it comes back to me being like, okay, cool. Well, I want that one back. So it's a no-brainer, and that's how a fight gets made. We don't, bro. We get Cam tell us who we're fighting, and both him and I are like, cool, okay, whatever. Like it's simple, So I guarantee you, this was the easiest fight to put together in eternal history.
Yeah. Now, the reason why I'm laughing is because there's another name that you haven't mentioned in the featherweight division.
Guy's irrelevant, bro. I know who you're gonna say. His name's Khan Offley, and he's irrelevant because let's just call it what it is, right? You got gifted a title fight against me based on the fact that you train at the same gym as the guy that I was meant to fight, who got signed to the UFC and moved on to bigger things, which is I knew about in the lead up to the fight.
Jack Jenkins, Jack Jenkins, absolutely.
Jack was Jack was very courteous in the lead up to the fight. He said, look, like accepted the fight, but it was like, hey man, just going to tell you like it is. My manager's still telling me that I'm going to be on Contender Series. So in my head, I already knew, okay, there's a chance that I might not be fighting Jack. I might be someone else. You know, they offered us Khan Offley. I got a rib injury. I had to pull out of the fight. You know, it wasn't, and it was like, it was just a shitty sort of situation. But in my head, I even messaged him as soon as I got injured and was like, hey man, I'm out of the fight, but hopefully we can figure something out. I don't know. You know, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the go is. So in my head, I was like, I'm fighting this dude later in the year. And then I come to find out that they offered him a bunch of replacements. He didn't want to take them. One of them being Rod, and he said no on short notice. Didn't want to fight. And you know, kind of you lose your spot. You lose your, you know, you're only there out of default because the guy that I was meant to fight got signed and he's your teammate. So they were like, okay, cool. Yeah. And then, you know, as it went on, I fought Diego for the belt. He beat Phil Pot. They put that fight together, whatever. Now we're looking at a guy who just is difficult to deal with, doesn't want to, you know, just is the opposite of what I spoke about with Rod and I. Like, just hard to deal with, doesn't want to, you know, doesn't want to budge on things. It's too, like, I get it, man. You're on a win streak. That's 7-fight win streak or whatever. Like, you've been fighting once a year for the last decade. Cool story. Who have you beat? You know, who have you beat in the last in that win streak? That's like, we look at and we go, holy shit, Rod, Jarrett, and that guy that you fought overseas that fought in Bellator a couple of times. Those are like 3 people I can point at and go, okay, cool. Everyone else, I'm like, I don't even know who the fuck they are. I don't even think we've ever seen them fight again or whatever. It's like, I don't know, man. The biggest thing for me is what that dude had an opportunity to cement his spot, didn't take it, and, you know, fell out. Went and fought on a different promotion, won a title. Congrats to him, did his thing. And as far as I know, you know, he's campaigning hard to be in the UFC or do something, take that next step. And if that happens, you know, whatever, I'm not going to knock the guy for doing that. You put yourself in that position. But in terms of me having to think that I need to fight him to solidify myself, it's a fight I wanted. I've never said no to a fight.
Yeah.
I fought up short notice, fought up in weight on like 24 hours notice. The last thing I care about is fighting a bloke in my weight class with notice. It could be 2 weeks. I don't care. You know, it's just, I don't feel like I need to. It would have been a cool name to have on my record. It would have been a cool fight because he's obviously is talented, but yeah, it's just the guy's irrelevant. You know, he's doing his own thing over there. It's just, you know, if you wanted to cement yourself, you would have done that, and we would have fought, but you didn't, so we didn't.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I thought Rod beat Khan, but obviously the reason why Rod is easier to work with, obviously he trains under Ben Vickers, who is part of Eternal with you. You get along very well with Eternal. Those fights are always going to be easy to make. Rod's also a gangster. And then obviously Absolute's always been tricky. Then you've got Hex. And unfortunately, I don't think that fight's going to happen because he's at the top of Hex. You're at the top of Eternal now. Those fights are notoriously hard to make because it's hard to match you guys up.
The thing about it is, right, I have no problem with the guy, like, other than the fact that him and all his people from that gym and that they all came out on the Eternal post when I was fighting for the belt against Diego and whinging and all this sort of stuff and saying all these things. And the common thing that people were saying is like, oh, I'm just scared to fight the guy. I don't want to fight him, which is just ridiculous. I don't have an issue with the dude. Like, we've trained together. He came to freestyle, like, you know, and, you know, him and I got to like sort of train a fair bit and, you know, spend a bit of sort of towards the sort of halfway point of last year.
Oh wow!
I think it was just before he fought overseas.
Yeah.
He went to City Kickboxing for a part of his camp, but he came here for a bit as well. So we like trained together. I got to actually like hang out with the guy a little bit as well. You know, super nice dude. I don't have an issue with the guy. I don't think he's like a piece of shit or anything. I think he's a nice guy. He's a super nice guy. He's very respectful. And when I messaged him when I got injured, he was very cool about it. And he even said, he's like, look, I know you're not the type of guy to fucking just willy-nilly pull out a fight. It's like, if you can't fight, you know, I understand. It's like, you know, it's a major thing, which is kind of annoying that then you jump on social media and say the things that you're saying, and it's like, whatever, man. Like, you're not that guy. You're a nice guy. You're a nice guy. You're a talented fighter. Just continue with that. But yeah, I mean, you know, if there was some way that we could have put that fight together, then I even asked for that fight. Like, I asked for it again. After he won the title with Hex, I said to Cam, I was like, let me go fight this guy, or let him come fight me. Like, let's put something together. Like, I was active about it, and Cam and everyone were like, he's like, would love to do that, but he's just it's hard to deal with. It's just like, I don't really want to do that. It's just a headache I don't need. And I was like, fair enough. Your job's to promote, my job's to fight. It is what it is.
And fighting is exactly what you're doing. How do you feel about, like, you're running it back with Rod, but that fight kind of came about because it made perfect sense. Like, Rod's beaten you before, so there's that threat of obviously you losing the belt, you're defending the belt. It was at the UFC weekend where Volkanovski was going for the double champ status at UFC, so it all kind of made sense. It was the fight before the UFC. It was great, but the fact that they're working so hard to make that happen, do you feel that they're trying to push Rod into becoming a double champ?
Of course, 100%. As you touched on before, he trains at Scrap MMA, trains with Ben. Of course, Ben's going to, whether he's the promoter of Eternal or not, I don't think it will matter. He'd want to push his people, his fighters to the best opportunities and get them sort of separated from the fold, like any coach and any team wants to do. But it's got that extra bit of motivation or drive to do that because he is, one of the promoters for Eternal, of course, 100%. Like, let's just call it like it is. I'm a fucking headache for the plans that they've had all of last year. They brought Phil Pot over, and that was meant to be his fight against me. Was meant to be his coming out party. They they were like, really, go back and listen to the commentary. Go back and look at all the stuff in the lead up. This dude was meant to run through me. Ran into a brick wall, got finished. Same thing with Alavi, undefeated, beating everyone, super dangerous. Same thing. This was meant to be his coming out party. Comes out there, puts a show on against me, fights for a belt. Now you got a guy who's undefeated as your featherweight champion, and he's finished everyone he's fought. Of course, you're going to want that. I don't know the ins and outs of the business, and I don't know the ins and outs of their dealings with people, but I can understand that they brought, both those dudes over to have like a serious impact in the promotion, but they didn't account for the fact that I don't give a fuck, and I'm here to like separate myself from everyone else. So, of course, yeah, like why wouldn't I 100% can see the little shifts in that. I can see that. And how this fight being put together. Like, to be honest, this fight's only happening because of me. In May, like, obviously I got injured, Rod got injured. I healed up from my injury and I was pushing to fight on that May card. Initially, they offered us the fight with Rod in May. And then we're like, nah, we're going to move it to the June card, whatever. I then said to Cam, I was like, well, fuck it. If there's no one else for me to fight at featherweight, or if Dullah doesn't want it, or we can't do, get me someone at lightweight. I don't care. I want to fight in May. I didn't plan to have my year be this delayed. I wanted to have fought twice already. Yeah. Like where we're at now, I wanted to have fought twice already if possible. So I was so proactive about fighting in May, and then Cam was like, no, like let's just. He said to me, he's like, you're in a position now where you don't need to do that. Like, you don't need to be fighting just for the sake of fighting. He's like, let's just wait, put something together for June and, defend your belt. So obviously, we get that matchup again. We're fighting back in Perth, but I'm not dumb. I can see things for how it is. Of course you want that fight in Perth. Rod's based in Perth. It's going to sell out. It's going to be, people are going to buy tickets. They're going to pack it out to see him come out and do his thing. But also, you're fighting in your hometown. Like, every little thing this guy does in the fight, the crowd's going to be like, whoa, and there's going to be big reactions. I'm not dumb. Like, from a coaching point of view and a promoting point of view, I can see why Ben would want the fight to be in Perth, because say it goes to a decision and it was a close back and forth fight, what do you think's gonna, like, those little things influence people? If every time someone does something, the crowd gives a reaction and you're just sitting there cage side judging and you're like, oh shit, like this guy's killing it, So obviously you want to stack the things in your favor of the guy of your guy. So, but none of that matters to me. Like, at the end of the day, this is going to be a good fight. We've both evolved vastly, I think, since the first fight. And I feel like it's going to be a completely different fight this time. Last time we exchanged on the feet, I made some silly mistakes, with my sort of defensive discipline and stuff like that. And then, got caught, gave Rod the opening, he capitalized and, was able to do some damage. This time round, it's going to be a different fight. Both of us have evolved. I feel like this is going to be, a high level mixed martial arts fight.
Well, talk about the first fight, because you got caught with that counter left hook 3-4 times and it eventually put you away. First of all, Were you too worried about the grappling going in? Did you not think that you had to worry about him standing? And then talk us through, like, did you get hurt on that first left hook, or was he just sort of catching it every time?
No, so what happened was right before I walked out. So obviously I knew Rod's pedigree with the grappling, but like right before I walked out, they're like, obviously the boys. I didn't have Joe and Volk with me, right? They were overseas. They were stuck in America because of the COVID stuff. And then so I had like someone else cornering me, and they said to me right before I walked out, they go, don't shoot on this guy at all. Like don't wrestle him at all. So like I knew about his pedigree, but I was like, when that was sort of said to me as I walked out, I was like, fuck, is he like that? Is his grappling that good? I'm like, shit, maybe we won't do that.
Yeah.
Look at the start of the fight. Look at the first part of that fight before I got clipped with that first left hook. I'm setting the pace. I'm getting in and out, and I'm hurting him with shots, like landing. I mean, not necessarily just I say like probably not hurting, but like I'm landing the effective shots, getting in and out. And he's kind of like finding it hard to counter. I got lazy with my distance. I didn't exit out, and then I got clipped with that first one, which was more glancing. And I was like, okay, like this would be the opportunity for me to start mixing up my level changes and start, mixing up my game. I didn't do that.
Now,
I didn't do that.
how's it going to go differently this time? Because obviously your grappling has exploded since training with freestyle and all those guys. I mean, it's always been good, but you're just next level. So are you gonna? I mean, without giving the game plan away, although you do strike me as a guy that would give the game plan away and you don't really care. But what's it going to be this time?
Same as if you look at my last fights that I had, like all of last year. Look at fight to fight. You see the evolution fight to fight. I'm getting better fight to fight because I'm working so diligently and I'm staying disciplined, and I have like such a good team behind me. So yeah, this time around, man, it's going to be vastly different. Like I'm not like if you look at from that fight to my very next fight, I'm not making this. I didn't make the same mistakes, and then I keep evolving, keep getting better. So this fight is going to be more of that. It's going to be a completely different level. It's going to be a mixed martial arts fight. Like I'm going to throw everything at him from every sort of possible avenue that I can, in the striking and the grappling and the wrestling. Like, look, people know that I can, obviously wrestle and grapple and stuff like that. Like if you look at my fights and stuff like that, predominantly I've gotten my work done in that sense. But obviously I've shown in my last few fights, especially the Alavi fight, the Diego fight, like if you only worry about my grappling and my wrestling, like you're going to be in for fucking, pretty rude shock. Like I got power in my hands and I can strike. Like I'm getting better across the board, but obviously the striking side of things it's gone like strength to strength, fight to fight, because like, as you touched on, I'm working with such a good team down at freestyle. But yeah, I'm going to, give this guy a lot of problems. I feel like I have a lot more weapons, and I feel like I have a lot more pathways to victory, than he does. Cause he might, if we look at it on paper and you look at it, the credentials, like his jiu-jitsu and his grappling is really, really good. But my MMA grappling is better. My wrestling's better. We're both improving in every area. We both improved as mixed martial artists, but he's got better grappling. Dude's got some power. He's durable. But like, if we're talking, he might be a better grappler. I guarantee you, I'm a better wrestler. But this ain't a wrestling match, and this ain't a jiu-jitsu match. It's an MMA fight. So it's going to be who can put it together the best, and who can capitalize on the opportunities. And if you look at my last few fights, and you look at my year that I had last year, I fight. If I get an opening, I'm putting people away. It's not about, oh, I'm finding success in the fight. Like I'm putting you away. You're that's it. I'm going to finish you. If you give me an opening, I'm going to finish you. Whether I'm on my back, whether I'm on top of you, whether we're striking, I'm going to find the finish, and it's going to be, that's it. And he comes in with that same sort of mentality where he wants to, it's like a kill or be killed type thing. Except the difference is, I'm composed. I have a lot more weapons. I don't get sort of overwhelmed with what's presented to me. I'm a lot more disciplined than what I was the first time we fought, especially when it comes to the striking side of things.
So do you think you could submit Rod Costa?
100%. Let's just, branching on from that, I think that is one method of victory that I think that would sting the most. is if I submit him. I think he would rather get knocked the fuck out cold than get submitted. I honestly I do not think if let's say we're exchanging and we get in a scramble and I snatch a submission, I think it'd be like a Tony Ferguson, Oliveira type situation. Like he'll let me break some shit before, like he was not gonna give me that satisfaction. So, you know, but if it's there, for sure gonna go for it. And I feel like I can do it. I feel like I can win the fight everywhere.
And in saying that, how is the fight going to go June 10th?
Look, honestly, when I look at this fight, I feel like both of us are gonna present some problems, especially early on. There's going to be a bit of a sort of a chess game going on, a feeling out process, as you call it. Like, but I feel like it's very quickly gonna shift to the fighting portion, if you know what I'm saying. Like, usually in fights, there's that feeling out process. You're trying to figure stuff out, trying to get your reads, but I feel like this one very quickly is going to shift to, you know, where we're going to be fighting and trying to capitalize on the openings. But ultimately, man, I see myself putting him away in the distance, like inside the 5 rounds. And that's another thing that I've, even though, you know, like with that last fight, I kind of went to 5 rounds. So I got to feel how I'd feel going, you know, that distance, how my body would feel, how I'd, you know, be seeing things presented to me. So I understand the time frame that I have. I understand when I need to utilize a bit more energy, when I don't. So I feel like I'm going to find the finish inside the 5 rounds that I have available to me. You know, whether that's straight away, whether it's the last 30 seconds of the 5th round, I'm putting him away. I don't plan on going to the judges, especially not in this dude's hometown.
And what's next for you after the fight? Like, do you think you've done enough?
To be honest, when I won the belt in December, and looked at my year and sat back and reflected on what I did, I was like, I thought I'd cemented myself as a clear, person to be next for a call up. You know, move on to bigger and better things. But, you know, this fight is going to be the doubling down on that. I feel like I go out there, beat Rod, especially if I get a finish. That cements me as like the clear person. You know, that I've beaten the best in Australia. Now it's time for me to go beat the best in the world.
Do guys like Joey Lopez, I mean, you train with Volkanovski, obviously they know the path to get there and they know if you're at that level. Have they given you any indication that that's a possibility?
Yeah, we're sort of, you know, realistic fight to fight with what we do. And we're not like even last year, like we were sort of not looking past what's in front of us, but you still have a long-term understanding of what needs to be done. So yeah, 100%. Like, I know what's at stake, and they've kind of like relayed that to me. Like, you know, this fight is a big fight. Like, look, we got to go out there and we got to put this guy away. We got to go get this win and put this guy away. And then, you know, we're moving on to bigger and better things.
And one last question before I let you go. I really do appreciate the time. But after it's all said and done, how does Justin Van Heerden want to be remembered in mixed martial arts?
A guy that went after it 100%. You know, this is my dream. It's my passion. And I just want to be able to, it's not so much how I'm remembered by everyone. I just want, like I've said this a few times, I just want my daughter to look at what I've done pursuing my passion and go, okay, so it doesn't matter what I want to do in life. If I have that same commitment, that same drive, that same passion, I'm going to be able to do it no matter what it is. But yeah, for me, it's like winning a world title, cementing myself as a world champion in mixed martial arts, and then just leaving that legacy for my daughter behind to go, okay, I can do what I want to do because, you know, here's the pathway set to me. Here's the example that's been given to me, you know? So I think that's probably my biggest drive and motivation.
Awesome. Thanks, mate. Thanks for taking time. You know, not only one of my favorite fighters, one of my favorite just personalities and guys that break it down. And looking forward to you fighting June 10th, HBF Stadium in Perth against Rod Costa for the 2nd time, defending your Eternal MMA featherweight belt. Tickets, do they still go through like the site with your fighter code? Is that
yeah? So they're still on Eternal MMA. You know, they're available now. So they've obviously announced the sales gone live. You just use, you know, Justin at checkout and you get your tickets, and yeah, you'll be laughing.
Beautiful. Thanks, mate. Best of luck, and I'll see you in my Instagram DMs.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate it.
See you later, brother.